So when you're using your life as a spiritual practice to go deeper versus trying to escape is all the difference in the world.
Awareness, the final frontier. This is Awareness Explorers.
Welcome back, Awareness Explorers, to awarenessexplorers.com and Awareness Explorers. I'm Jonathan Robinson. I'm with my co-host,
Brian Tom O'Connor.
And today we have a special guest that I'm very excited about because I am taking this person's class, and she's actually been very important in furthering my own spiritual growth. And her name is Dr. Karen Thorson. Let me tell you a little bit about Karen. She is one of the few people on earth who I consider to have a stranger history than me, and that's saying a lot. So she really has an incredible bio. Dr. Thorson has been a lifelong seeker and explorer. She's been in touch with energy and psychic phenomena as a child, which naturally turned to drug use, and failing at that, she got clean in 1985 and started taking psychic development classes, eventually bringing her energy wisdom down to the physical plane and consciously connecting to body, mind, and spirit. And she's done things like being a Reiki master, a shamanic mentoring, a ordained minister, a certified massage therapist, certified addiction professional, relationship coach, and doctor of chiropractic. And she has a daughter, and her have been diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, which is a painful genetic collagen disorder. She might talk a little bit about her experiences with that. She's also done network chiropractic, or NSA, and she has a website at networkwellnessofboulder.com, where she schedules both in-person and Zoom appointments. And let's get right into it. Welcome to Awareness Explorers, Karen. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's so fun to see you online in your capacity.
Yeah, I've been taking your class for a couple months, in which you talk about how to be fluid amongst many different states of consciousness, or different, what Jeffery Martin once called locations and layers. And I'm wondering what got you interested in that level of being able to go from one experience to another so rapidly and effectively?
Good question. I think it started with the Ehlers-Danlos, which is the genetic collagen disorder. And so I was uncomfortable as a child, and no one really thought much of it back then, and no one knew why. And it really hadn't been researched very well up until about 10 years ago. And so I had all these little things wrong with me, physically, painful joints and digestive problems and allergies and all these different things. And so you don't sleep well, so you're aggravated and mad at the world, and yet still seeing lights and talking to ghosts and all this stuff's going on. I'm like, this is a weird planet. I just do not get this place. And so I realized, well, either I'm crazy or there's more to life than what I can see. And so I threw myself into taking classes and reading books. And that's what I've been doing for 40 years. And I start to see, well, if you don't have a basic level of health, it's really difficult to sit and meditate.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have any concentration, it's really difficult to stick with it long enough to get anywhere. If you don't know what the goal is or what the heck the person's talking about, it's hard to understand it. It's hard to concentrate on something in particular if you're all around the board, with some of this, some of that, some of the other thing. And then even when you get the energy stuff and you go home to your roommate or your parents or your beloved and they piss you off and you're like, how do I apply this stuff? This is not working. So this whole concept of effortlessness or no suffering, I came to see that it's about not worrying about the pain that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
It's about not panicking when you're taking your kid to the hospital. It's about being present with what is. And a lot of what is sucks and you won't like it. but to not push it away because here it is. What else are you going to do?
You know, one of the things I like about you, Karen, is you've managed to go into really unusual and far out experiences and states of consciousness, and yet also run a business and manage to be grounded. We were just talking about how to manage certain websites and things like that. And most people don't have that ability to handle both of those aspects of beingness. And yet, partly maybe because of your health difficulties and things like that, you actually managed to cover that from two different angles.
I pretty much had to. And then being a parent of a mildly disabled child, I really had to step up. And when my ex disappeared, then I really, really, really had to step up. And so when you're you show up. And then you see, wow, showing up is really teaching me things. Wow, showing up and participating with what is in the moment, that's where all the gifts are. That's where you start to realize what the koans mean and all the paradoxes like, oh, I am in control, I'm not in control. I am separate and I am part of this whole thing. I need to show up moment to moment to survive. A lot of it was really just plain self-preservation. When things were so very, very hard, all I could do was be in the moment and be in the next moment. I didn't have time to worry. I didn't have time to ruminate. There just wasn't an option. And after a few years of that, you could go like, wow, I'm just in the moment. I didn't plan it. I wasn't part of tradition to know what I was doing. It's like awakening just unfolded for me without my knowing what was going on.
So by being in the moment so often, you really got a feel for what it felt like, and then you realized, wow, this feels good. This is something I can stick with.
Yeah, this is it. This is it. What there is. This is all there is.
This is all there is.
This is the whole thing.
And I loved the fact that you talked about paradox, because I remember in one of your videos, I heard you say about that non-duality is your current experience, that it's all just one thing. But along the way, we have to deal with the duality that we're experiencing. So whatever is showing up for you is what you need to be with.
Right. In the Alice Bailey books, the Theosophical Society, they talk about dual life or dual existence. So you've got one foot in that absolute radical non-duality of, we're all one and nothing's really happening and you don't have to do anything. And you've got the other foot in a householding where your child is handing you a permission slip and you have to find the money to pay for the trip and drive her there and send lunch. So most of life is really pretty simple when you're just in the moment. You just do those one or two things that you have going on and you're doing your being. When you're there as a conscious being, when you're there really opening to what is, and yet what is still a big to-do list. You're still doing the laundry.
Yeah, I've often thought of it this way. That sounds very similar to what you're just saying, that, people talk about allowing and accepting what is, but that doesn't mean you don't take any action, because part of what is there to be allowed and accepted is that often you're called upon to take action.
Right. And in today's society, a lot of us are taking care of both our parents and our children. We're trying to do some sort of career. Maybe we want a hobby and all these different things. Life has a lot of moving parts. There's a lot to do. And those parts seeking a whole need to have some kind of thread that runs through the whole entire thing to show you the oneness of all the parts.
So in that, I'm in a class that you teach on fluidity. I know that you have like granular detail about a lot of different states of consciousness. And when I say granular, I'm talking granular.
Pages and pages of notes. Yeah.
Yeah. And various techniques to help people get into these different states of consciousness. And it's very unusual for somebody to have such understandings and such depth in that realm, and then an equal amount of facility in the material world, where you're a network chiropractic and you do other type of stuff. How do you put those two things together in a daily life?
First of all, I'm a lot better with the energy than I am with running the business. I don't really have equal facility.
Okay.
One blossoms out of me and is my joy, and the other is the thing that I pick at little by little and ask for help and make mistakes and yet still show up.
Mm-hmm.
So I started out in the energy work, which brought me into shiatsu and reflexology and energy into the body. And then going to graduate school, becoming a doctor of chiropractic, that really kicked my butt. It was hard. It was really a lot. So I learned how to study and how to take notes and how to manage cases and take on responsibility. And a lot of people in awakening want to go and live in a cave. They're really hoping to get away from responsibility and escape things. And so you throw being a parent on top of that, and my whole life between being a doctor and a parent is about being responsible for other people's health and well-being. So you pay attention and you show up, because the consequences can be strong. It's not just, I lost a sweater or something. It's somebody's going to the ER if things aren't working out. And a lot of the clients that see me don't have insurance. And so I'm it. I'm their person for really discussing their traumatic situations and their everything from the cancer that they're trying to manage to their kids coming out as transgender, to they're seeing ghosts and having lucid dreams, to whatever it is may be. Having worked with a population from birth till death, and men and women and rich and poor and people living in their cars and trust funders in Boulder, I get all the stories, all the stuff. And so you move from thing to thing to go, oh, okay, let's do this now, and let's change your bandage now, and then the next person, let's talk about your divorce now. So whatever it is that's showing up, that's the grist for the mill. That's your doing. That's your being trying to show up and saying, okay, here's the problem. How do I change apartments? Well, what's coming up about that? Is it resistance to spending money? Is it your reputation? Is it not living up to your parents' expectations? What is it that's making this to be a problem at all, rather than just a life experience? And so thing after thing after thing, it's like, wow, then you see the thread. This is fluidity is about seeing the thread of oneness through the whole entire thing. Seeing the joy, seeing the love, seeing the sorrow. If you care enough to have sorrow, you still cared about something.
In your class, you're giving people kind of techniques that are very individual to a person. Like, let's say I want to get into what could be called a love state. You will mention about, what are the triggers, what body positions help, what thoughts help, what scenery helps. And it's all very specific and unique. I'm wondering, when you're talking about what you do in a more generic way, how do you talk about how to help people into these different states?
Every system is unique and particular, and there'll be some detail. There'll be some little detail that's stopping you from liberation in that moment. And looking at Jeffery's stuff, it's amazing the difference between saying, is it just this? Is it just that? Is it just now? It's just existence. It's just silence. And your brain will go, no, 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 no. And then somewhere along the line, you hit the right word and you go, it's just oneness. And you go, yeah, there it is. There it is. It's just oneness. And you're like, all right. And the everything opens up. The system
Yeah.
allows it, and the whole thing lets you in.
I
And
noticed that too, that sometimes just different word or a different phrase or a different emphasis, and a person goes from no, 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 no. Oh my God, now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I had written down a quote from one of your videos where you said, it's funny how picky the system is. It's just the weirdest thing. Every person needs their particular words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the oddity of finding your unique, picky thing is what brings you into non-dual oneness. Finding the one thing that unlocks you then opens up the whole world. And it's oddly simple. It's some
Mhm.
little thing that's so obvious where you go, breathe. I should breathe. And you breathe and you're like, and that was it. And then boom, 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 boom. It just vibrates as like a cellular affinity. Your whole thing unlocks and the energy and the body become one. And you breathe and it opens up in the world. Nothing has changed and everything's different with a breath, just
Mhm.
a breath. We want it to be so complicated or so magical or something.
Right.
And yeah, and it's like, well, no, just have a sandwich and smile. And that might do it for an individual person.
Yeah, yeah. One of my teachers, Stuart Schwartz, would, when you had an emotion, he would just say, anger is here, take a breath. And it was such a simple practice. It was so great. And certain words have been that for me, like, it's already here.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first heard that, that was huge.
Yeah.
But everybody, as Jonathan and I often talk about, everybody is different. And that's why it's so great to present a lot of different ways to approach it.
Right. And classically, you go home and tell your spouse it's already here. And your spouse is like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly.
This is not their phrase.
Sure, sure. And not only things work differently for different people, but even for the same person at different times of the day.
Right. And that's the philosophy behind the locations and the fluidity. In different perspectives, if you're in a very empty perspective, it might be just this. And if you're in a very rich, very full, very heart expanding perspective, it might be everything's love. And you're in a really psychic, psychedelic perspective, and it's like, no, everything's light.
Yeah.
And so, you unto yourself, depending on what you're congruent with in that moment, depending on what your consciousness is emptying out or filling up, it's like breathing. It's going to empty out, it's going to fill up, it's going to empty out, it's going to fill up. In any particular moment, different things are what you need and what makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what advice for our listeners would you give to help them discover their specific, unique keys or locks that help them open to higher states of consciousness?
Part of the reason that I took the 45 Days to Awakening class is reading the Finder's book by Jeffrey Martin made so much sense that basically a shotgun approach of trying different things long enough that you give it a fair try, but not so long that you get bogged down into failure and your system starts thinking you can't do it. You try one thing and another thing and another thing. So that's key number one. Key number two is those different things really need to be multidimensional. So the people that have seen me that have a body-centered practice, which, is usually network if they're seeing me, but, could be yoga, could be, Frank Yang did bodybuilding, so you have your really body-centered thing. And then you have your EQ where you're working on your emotions, where you're working on growing up and showing up and cleaning up and becoming that better person. The philosophy things are interesting, but they don't tend to help people actually awaken. You have to actually do something. So whether it's breath work and posture and being of service, participation, you really have to participate in something. And whether it's art or music or whatever, being a well-rounded person is really a good idea. And we get so very serious with our spiritual, we're very, very dour and very silent and whatnot. And the joy of life, the joy of living gives you so much more energy, the quality of your energy, the quantity of your energy, the quality of life. you've got something to work with when you're doing different things. So there are some people that find their tradition and do their tradition and really stick with it and go really, really deep. And for a certain segment of the population, we're kind of a bell curve. For some people, that going really deep with one teacher for 40 years is wonderful. I'm on the other end of the bell curve. Let's try some of this. Let's try some of that. Let's change your diet. Let's get you a pet where you're not alone while you're at home, and, practice your eraser breathing. And having those 3 or 4 or 5 things are what makes the difference. It's the same with pain management. A lot of people see me for pain management and they want to have the one and done. Could I just have the one PT exercise that's really going to fix the whole thing and I can eat like crap and while I'm doing it? No, you can't eat like crap and have as good a results. So when you have your better sleep and you have your better food and you have your community, virtually all the studies, we're pack animals and we have better longevity with community. We have better health with community. We have more happiness with community. We like to think we're really different if we're spiritual seekers, but we still have the same pack animal nervous system that everybody else does. And you're going to do a lot better when you see some other people saying, yes, you can do this. Yes, it can be fun. Yes, that's a normal, hitch in your get along. Yes, you can get over that. And finding a way to have some fun and a hobby, some community, add it all together. And that's what makes non-duality. It's everything, having some of everything.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about non-duality in terms of what it isn't. Like, that's not non-dual. That's not non-dual. That's comparing two things. That's not non-dual. And it seems to me, speaking of paradoxes, that's the central paradox of non-duality, is that duality is included.
Right. The joke, everything includes all the parts.
Yeah.
And the non-duality and the paradox and the struggles and everything. It's all in there. Mm-hmm. And in any given moment, you might be seeing one side of it, and that's the appropriate side for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually you might see the other side, or you might switch over into some other paradox. But what's included in non-duality is ultimately everything. That's the point.
You have focused a lot, partly because of your physical condition, on various body modalities, everything from network spinal analysis to Reiki and a lot of different things. And I'm curious as to how that exploration has affected your spiritual experience.
It brought me the realization that if you can't bring peace into your romantic relationships, if you can't bring it all the way down into your body, you can't bring it into your parenting, if you're not doing your being, you're not really doing it. You don't really get it. It's just a philosophy. It's just a thought. And until you're living it, you're not living it. And so I had ample opportunity every day, which made then for practice, my life is my practice. So every day I could be grouchy about not sleeping well, or every day I could get up and shake it off. Every day I could do something nurturing for myself. I could make a list of 10 things that would be nurturing for myself. And the more things I did, the better I got. And the more different techniques I learned, the better I got. And the more techniques I had for other people, the better they got. Mm-hmm. And that uniqueness, there are thousands of supplements and thousands of techniques and thousands of things that have thousands of clients because they all work for someone somewhere, but not everyone. If we could all just take vitamin C and it would work, we'd all just take vitamin C and it would work. But it doesn't. We had to find our set of a dozen things that are multidimensional to be able to bring ourselves into the moment of who we are. And when I was 20 was different from when I was 30, was different from when I was 40. So living in the mountains is different than being at sea level. So there are a lot of little details that can really add together to make a difference. So I kept trying things. I had to take some continuing ed for one, and people would show up with different problems. And I go, well, I better go learn about that now. And
Yeah.
I didn't get diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos till I was 50 because my daughter is more severe than me. And when we finally got her diagnosed, and they're like, it's a genetic disorder, which means it either came from you or her dad. And I was like, okay. So I got to face the parenting challenge of, no, it really is my fault. Like, really genetically, scientifically is my fault that she has this problem. So then you go like, okay, what do I do with that? Well, I accept it and go, well, there it is. It is what it is. And worrying doesn't help, and judgment doesn't help, and panic doesn't help. But being with her in solidarity and saying, yeah, I know what that's like. Yeah, I can give you 10 different ways to feel better. Yeah, I don't think you're crazy. I'm here with you.
Mm-hmm.
It was profound in our experience.
I volunteer in jails. I teach meditation, and I went to jail yesterday, and I was talking to guys, and I often ask, how long you in for? And he said, I'm here for the rest of my life, which struck me because he's only like 30.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what happened? And he said, I was driving drunk and I killed 4 people. And he seemed very balanced and good. I said, how'd you survive that? He said, I had no choice. It was either kill myself or develop a spiritual connection. And I relied on it, and it was a sink or swim situation. And I hear in your life that as challenges came to you, you kept on saying, okay, I'll use this to swim better.
Yep.
And that attitude is so key. I'm going through some challenges now with a course I'm doing, and it's forcing me to confront some things and learn some things, and sometimes it's been slightly overwhelming, but it's almost a blessing sometimes when you get these challenges if you're up for it. And
Exactly.
that seems to be your attitude. Yeah.
Just go deeper. That's what I thought to myself over and over throughout my life. I'm just going to go deeper. And what's behind that? And what's behind that? And what's behind that? So when you're using your life as a spiritual practice to go deeper versus trying to escape, is all the difference in the world. It's a tiny little difference. And I mean, honestly speaking, I wanted it to feel better. I was going deeper because deeper felt better. It actually is more successful to go deeper to feel better. So ironically, the minute you give up and the minute you surrender is when it actually feels better. Well, one of the things I had on my website for years is it's not about feeling better. It's about being better at feeling.
That's so wise. Well, when you say go deeper, so just for a practical level, someone has been trying to escape their problems or ignore them or not have their feelings. And if you were to tell them that life is your teacher, you need to go deeper, how would they go about going deeper? Yeah.
So if I put it into just a 3 or 4 step thing, number 1, feel your body sensations. Are you clenching your teeth? Are you not breathing? Be here now as a physical being and see how you are holding the energy on the physical plane. So there was one time when my daughter was little and I was mad at something, and she's like, "What's wrong, Mommy?" And I'm like, "I'm fine." And she said, "Well, you should tell your face." And I was like, "Oh, all right, that's a good point. I should embody this, this embodiment." So what's your body actually doing? That's thing number 1. Thing number 2, what are my emotions, my thoughts, and my needs? And I really love NVC, Nonviolent Communication. Where you go, what actually happened without judgment? What are my emotions? What did I think I was needing? What was it, and how am I holding it that the world is doing something wrong? I needed this and you didn't give it to me. I needed that and it's not on time. So look at, well, what is my actual problem with what's showing up emotionally and mentally? And then finally, I look at what is the energy? What is the opportunity? What is the universe telling me? I need to be bigger somewhere here. I need to be more responsible. I need to be more willing. I need to be more humble. There's something I don't want to do, or it wouldn't be a problem. So in some way, shape, or form, it's saying, no, you need to, you need to spend all night sitting at the hospital. Well, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to sleep. Well, sucks to be you. Show up at the hospital is what you're doing. So I'm fighting reality. How am I fighting reality? Which then leads you back to that story that you got in the NVC of what your feelings and needs were, where you think you know what's supposed to happen. You can compare what you think you thought was supposed to happen, what you thought your needs were, to what's actually happening and what you actually need.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be a grown-up. I need to pay for this. I need to double my hours. There's something I need to do to make this work. I don't really need, apparently, to have as much sleep as I thought. I don't really need to have a second parent show up for this whole thing. I actually need to be the one that's showing up. That's what was needed.
Seems like most people, when they get difficult stuff, they go into blame and self-pity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the cultural way or the normal way. What do you think makes a difference for the people like you who have managed to take suffering and kind of turn it into grace?
That place where you have to. I didn't sit down one day and say, oh, I think I would be a superior being if I let go of shame. I literally didn't have time for it. And after some number of months, there was a few years where between all the different legal things and school things and hospital things, my daughter had 200 appointments a year. And I was the only one I was the driver. I was the financer, so I had to work as well. And I had a second child that was applying for college and learning how to drive and all those other things. So I just did what needed to be done. I did not have time for pity. I didn't have time for suffering. I didn't have time to complain to friends. I didn't have time to craft this wonderful story of woe is me or whatnot. And after some period, a year or two later, I'm like, wow, this is really, a lot has gotten done. And wow, this being in the moment thing really works. Just really, this not sitting and wallowing in your story thing is really oddly great.
Yeah.
And so you do what you have to do. Necessity is the mother of invention. And frankly, our lives are so easy a lot of the time now that we have the luxury of wallowing.
Mm-hmm.
Often when things like that have happened to me, and there have been really major challenges that required a lot of time and effort and figuring out and learning, etc. After it was all over, I would get this overwhelming feeling I didn't do it.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened, even though at the time I was convinced I was doing it. But afterwards, it was like that sort of just did itself. How did that happen? And you've talked about that kind of subject before, about doership and what would you call it? There's another word I'm not thinking of right now.
Agency?
Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that was one of my big insights upon discovering Jeffrey's work and going, wow, there's my life laid out in these locations, one after the next after the next. And I had done fairly late locations, location 10 when I started Jeffrey's course. And I had no idea. I have no idea how this happened. There was no me looking back on it. It was like, I couldn't have planned that better. I know never in a million years would I have chosen what happened to be my path. And I wouldn't want it for anyone. I would say, go and find yourself in a really gut-wrenching situation and it'll be great for your spirituality. It's not how anybody wants to do it. But the universe has bigger plans. And whatever we find ourselves in, whether we're taking care of an elderly parent, whether we have a stressful job, whether we have a physical condition. It doesn't matter what's going on. That's the thing that the universe is offering you. That's what you got.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you want it or not, whether it seemed hard or easy, maybe you won the lottery and now you have $1 billion. Well, that's what you got. And there are going to be the pros and cons of that. There'll be the pressures of everybody wanting your money and showing up. You know, if you have some wonderful thing, you still have this very expensive yacht to take care of, and there's going to be hurricanes and you still need to do something with it. So it doesn't really matter what shows up. You're going to acclimate. A year later, it's going to be your new normal. And you had some opportunities within those circumstances to find new insights, to have new experiences, to get stronger, to get more fun. This is always about getting stronger. You should get more fun, to get some hobbies, have more friends, meet cool people like Brian and Jonathan. You know, I mean, there's the joy as well. So I don't want to get too bogged down into the finding some god-awful situation is going to make you spiritual. Whatever you have is what the universe gave you. That's the actual plan for you.
Mm-hmm. And I like your kind of attitude of what's the opportunity with what I'm being given now. And there's always an opportunity. I remember Ram Dass used to say, your life is your curriculum. You might as well take it.
Right. Right. Your life is your practice.
Uh-huh.
And if opportunity isn't a word that you like, because some people that word opportunity doesn't land well with them, you know, maybe it's a challenge. Or for me, a lot of it is, this is what you've got, period. Whether it was an opportunity or a bad thing or a good thing, this is it. This is what's in the now. So I'm not trying to judge it as good or bad or this or that or the other thing. Just this is it. So this is what I'm doing, because here it is.
Yeah, you're not adding the second arrow. You're in pain or something's happening, and then that's hard enough. But then the idea it shouldn't be happening seems to me what makes it all worse. And when that goes, you can deal with the problems that are happening. Right.
So when someone's in physical pain, there's the physical part, and the suffering is everything else. The emotional part of the guilt or the anger or the blame or the shame, and then the mental trying to decide what to do or whose fault it is, or is this the right thing or not? And then the anxiety, the emotions about the thoughts, and the thoughts about the emotions as you're judging yourself for being angry about it. And then you're angry about the fact you're judging it, right? This is where it gets piled higher, deeper. If you can,
you just summarized my mental state for the last couple of days, and it's interesting because I normally don't live in that state, and it was fascinating to see this shouldn't be happening thought loop going around and around, and what a waste that was. And I finally used a mantra that was given to me by my spiritual guides to stop that thought loop, which was the mantra, blah, blah, blah.
That's a good one.
I eventually I'm just sick of listening to these complaining thoughts. It doesn't matter who's to blame or who did what to who or whatever. It's just like, this is on the curriculum. This is interesting. And how will I handle it?
It's what you got.
It's
what Karen says.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's an energy suck. It's just not helping. Stuff doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan knows in my class, rule number 1, don't make a problem where there isn't one.
Mm-hmm.
If you can just get to it and get the thing done, get it solved, you haven't wasted a lot of time and a lot of energy and created a lot of suffering about whatever pain is showing up. Don't make a problem where there isn't one. Rule number 2, because life is paradox and there are two sides to the coin, if there is a problem, you better do something about it. And so if you are in pain, if you are throwing up, if your body's having a problem, if they're about to evict you out of your house, you better do something about it. So to have no responsibility and no effort and not pay attention at all, to say, oh, okay, I'll just do what's in front of me and never think about it, people can get into some really unhealthy, unethical situations.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have to see, well, is this legal? Is this healthy? Is this addiction? Is this codependence? What's happening here? that maybe I shouldn't just be doing the thing that was put right in front of me, because my guru said so, or because my partner said so, or the rest of the crowd is jumping off a bridge, I'm not going to jump off as well. So it's that multidimensionality. It's that both sides of the coin. It's you need them both in non-duality to see, is this good quality living or not? Mm-hmm. And that's why life is hard, is you need to think about it and not think about it.
It's like Jonathan's analogy, and one we talk about all the time on this, the two-wing analogy.
Yeah.
If it's all just non-duality, that's one wing. And if it's all, how do I perfect the person? That's one side, psychological health, if you want to put it in better, kinder terms. But only one wing, the plane goes in circles.
Exactly.
I was talking to a good friend yesterday, and who used to write books about non-duality and awakening. And he said, yeah, I'm not into that anymore. I said, well, that's interesting. He said, yeah, the people who I see are into that, they're often using it as a escape from being effective in the world. And I thought that was an interesting perspective. And it is easy to use it as an escape from the world. And trying to find that right balance is a lifelong endeavor.
Yeah, that middle path is just you smack into a wall on one side. This is my style. Then you smack into the wall on the other side, and then you smack. And that's how I make it down the hallway. Bash to the left, bash to the right, wobble down the middle path by accident.
That's psycho-cybernetics at its best.
And the trick is to, when you've bashed into the wall on one side, to admit that that's what you've done. And now it's time to bash into the other side.
Exactly. So you don't just keep bruising one side. Go ahead.
Well, that's what a lot of people do. They keep bashing into that same wall for 20, 40 years.
Yeah, and that's no fun.
No fun at all.
That's another element. If you notice you're not having any fun, then you've gone a little bit too far. You've gone too far in one side or the other. If there's not some fun or some joy or some creativity and some expansion, some aliveness.
Yeah, I noticed that too, Karen, that a lot of the people coming to me, whether for psychotherapy or MDMA therapy, they think that if I just unearth all the crap and all the trauma for enough number of years, then I will be eternally free and have fun. And it doesn't generally go that way, that there has to be balance, there has to be fun, there has to be enjoying the process, or it won't go in a good direction.
Yeah, that's the same sort of thing. People go into that. It's too serious. They go into, if I just did enough hours, if I could meditate for 6 hours or 8 hours or 12 hours, if I could just find the right drug, if I could just find the right guru, if I could just find the right one thing, it would be one and done.
Yeah.
Just be a good enough person, then the lightning would strike and it would all open up. Well, you're already a good enough person. You're already blessed. You're already loved. You're already a child of God. You're here. So obviously you're meant to be here. So you might as well have a little fun and a little connection and surrender and have good health and exercise and floss your teeth and have some core strength and that's the other problem. Then it becomes and my God, there's 1,000 things. So we can really only do so many. You pick your 3 things, your 4 or 5 things that you do in any particular week. Not too much, not too little, not too hot, not too cold. Yeah. Find the one that's just right for now. And you have to stay aware to see when it stops working and you need to evolve to the next thing.
Yeah. And all those if-onlys that you listed are all future thoughts. It's all this idea that enlightenment or awakening or non-duality is something that's going to happen to you in the future. And this is why I love both your focus on the body and your focus on joy, because, well, first of all, noticing your body sensations can only be happening now.
Right.
And I read an interesting quote just the other day, and I want to ask you your thoughts on it. I think it was by Sri or some Sri Aurobindo follower. He said, most people don't live in their bodies. They live in the thoughts of the past and future. Bodies are only now. Moreover, our bodies are where bliss is experienced. Bodies are, in fact, how undifferentiated consciousness experiences bliss. I just loved that. What do you think?
Yeah, I had heard a quote, I forget who it was, through the body you will find God. And in the moment, there was a Reiki forum years ago where people were discussing whether groundedness was a concept or experience. And a chunk of the people were saying, no, grounded is a concept. You set the intent, maybe you have a ritual, you do your thing to make it be grounded. And a bunch of other people were saying, no way, man, you're missing the point. Groundedness is taking off your shoes and going outside and feeling the ground. It's an actual experience of an actual thing that you can have in the actual moment. It's wet or it's cold or it's dirty or gritty or whatever it is. You actually having this experience is not just a thought. And then if you can take it to the third level, where groundedness is a meaningful thing that you have in your entire existence, when you commune with the earth, when you feel the wisdom of being supported by the chair, instead of just feeling the texture of the chair, you feel the all-encompassing support of groundedness. It's an identity, it's a non-duality, it's a much bigger, meaningful thing rather than just an experience in the moment. It becomes an eternal always. But the thought by itself is nothing. And you go out and have all these different experiences. That's why we're here in a body. Live life in the experience. Have the bliss of feeling the grass between your toes and the sun on your face. And get that little cut where you need to clean it out and have the Band-Aid and do all the things and see the value of shoes and why we would want to be grounded and why we would want to have shoes. And now you start having the wisdom. You start having the multidimensionality. What is the ground? And can I provide groundedness for others? Can groundedness be something even bigger when we do it together?
Very poetic.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd want us to ask you that we haven't covered or that you'd want to talk about?
I don't know. I'm so in the moment.
Us too.
Yeah. You know, the things across the board that I do recommend to people, one is Jeffrey's 45 days course. It really is a very efficient, very well done place where you can have a big experience of different meditations and find what words work for you.
For those who aren't familiar with it, they can find out you can Google 45 Days to Awakening or the 45-Day Challenge, and you'll learn a lot.
Or Jeffrey Martin. That's the Jeffrey you're speaking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 45 Days to Awaken will take you to the actual class. And then Epienergetics.com. If you do that, it'll get you to network. And if there is some network person in your area, that's the best body-centered awakening that I know. And then just whatever, try what's in your neighborhood. Try what's around you. Try a variety of different things. You know, go for it. What the heck? Something that sounds really fun and something that sounds really hard and something that you've been meaning to do that you just haven't gotten around to is probably a good one. That one that you know and people keep telling you that you don't do is probably your best first step.
And, you know, something I've learned from you, Karen, which isn't obvious, is that we all have experienced some type of higher state of consciousness at some point in our life. And just kind of going over what was happening, what were the details that led to that. You know, for a long time, I used to spend this time in this particular church that would get me incredibly high. And then I moved out of the area, so I wasn't in that system anymore. But then I thought, well, what was it about what was going on there that was so valuable? And, you know, we'd be singing these songs of praise and love and doing that in a group. So when I realized that, oh, that's part of my higher experience ingredient. And then there were some people there that I had these great discussions with. Well, that's part of it. And then there were certain phrases in those songs that really made a difference. And I wrote down those phrases. And now when I repeat those things, I get to have that experience every day. I don't have to travel 30 miles to that particular church or system. And those things are things that we forget, but when you actually put attention on them, they really help you to have higher experiences.
They really do. And the system that has helped me the most for finding out your unique experience is human design, which is a combination of astrology and I Ching. And so when I, about 10 years ago, saw my human design chart, it really explained a lot about some of the qualities, like part seeking a whole is a big theme in my human design. The detail that shifts you from suffering to liberation is a big factor in my human design chart. And so while it still has free will, you don't have anything where it says you have to be a school teacher or you have to move to India. It can tell you a lot about the qualities that show up as themes in your life, the energies that show up over and over where you could value certain things, and that could be helpful in you determining your own particular incarnation.
Mm-hmm.
So I do human design readings as well as the body work because they're just so personal in being able to.
You might want to put on your website the 2 or 3 things that you don't know about, because it would be simpler.
I don't know about car maintenance. That's when I'm really
Okay.
bad. Accounting and taxes, definitely.
Okay. So yeah, but anything else,
Anything else, I'm good.
Yeah, right.
Well, I could say the same about you, Jonathan. I've always been impressed by how much you know about so many things.
The old sink or swim approach seems to work for both Karen and I that way.
Good.
Yeah. I know you're going to be doing a guided meditation. Before that, let people know how they can contact you.
So the website I've had for the last 20 years or so, which has been in practice in Boulder, is networkwellnessofboulder.com.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest thing, you go on there and you make a new client appointment, either in person or online. So at this juncture, I'm still seeing people in person and still doing one-on-one things. I am transferring over to Kajabi, where the class that you are in. So becoming more of an online classes and whatnot. So that's the Kajabi thing is in its early stages. I have one thing posted on YouTube so far.
Well, this will be number 2. We're accelerating you 100%.
Exactly. So I'm moving fast.
Yeah.
And my email is karenthorson@me.com.
Okay. And I hear you have a guided meditation for us, and I'd love to experience that.
Excellent. So wiggle your body and get in your nice meditation place, whatever that may be for you, which could be eyes open with soft focus. It could be eyes closed. But let yourself have some fun and receive whatever may be today. And feel the space around you and in you. Now is a chance to explore and feel the breath, the formless, the peace in your body. Relax and be comfortable, safe, and curious. Relax your face. Relax your chest. Let go of your arms. Let your legs be heavy all the way to the ground. In this relaxed space, we can feel the vast fullness of breath. We can feel the field in and around our bodies, bigger and bigger than our skin, really connected to everything, expanding with life, expanding with wellness, expanding with joy. We can touch existence itself. We are continuously basking in the energy of the universe. A thread of anything could show up. The now is a container for every moment, every possibility. Including a quiet, easy stillness. A grounded peace. Right now, there's nothing to do. We can just let go and be held. Everything just be. Anything can show up just as it is. Everything is open and free. Even I could show up in the moment, wanted and needed by the universe. My participation is valuable. I am one with the whole, interconnected and co-arising. And we can feel the breath in our body in the now. We can feel ourselves come back to regular life and our joyous experiences in the body today. And when you're ready, go ahead and move and open your eyes. Bringing that ease with you.
Hmm.
Lovely. Thank you
And
so much for that. Oh,
when I come out of these meditations, I always look to Brian because he always has this look of bliss on his face.
It does. There's joy in your face.
I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. That was beautiful and wonderful. And we use a tagline at the end of our podcast of "Keep exploring," and I think of you have really embodied that and used those words and inspired people to do that. So I thank you for that.
And I appreciate all the exploration you guys are doing. It has been a really fun 2 weeks of going back and listening to a lot of your guests and a lot of your talks. And I am a big fan now of your work. So thank you for asking me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. And I always, when I go into each episode, I think, how will this be helpful to our listeners? And I think this certainly passed with flying colors.
Well, and if we looked at the details, how do you think this would help your viewers?
Mm-hmm.
Pop quiz.
Pop quiz?
Pop quiz. How are you helped today in the moment by this?
I think the answer for each person, just asking that question, and the answer is going to be very unique.
Yes.
And sometimes what I love is that just one phrase or one idea or one method can really shift a person if they get it at the right moment. So that question, well, what in today's episode, or what did you hear that makes a difference for you? And something I got is that in a certain way, the challenges of life are asking us to get bigger and stronger in a very specific direction. And if we're listening for that and using that, then in a strange way, suffering is actually grace.
Yeah. Yeah. The pain is the gift.
Mm-hmm.
I just love your phrase, what do you got?
What do you got?
It's what's here right now. What's, because for me, this is Awareness Explorers, and we talk about awareness, and it's difficult for some people conceptually because they want to go right there. But I usually think it's easier just to start with what's in awareness, with what do you got? Take an inventory. What's happening right now? And then work your way back. And it seems like you embody that approach.
The power in the now.
Yeah.
And the pop quiz. So as I say to people, like, okay, what do you got? What do you got right now?
What do you got? Yeah. What's happening?
Literally what I just did. What you got?
Yeah. What's here?
And it is, and it's startling. It's startling to go, oh God, what is here? And it forces you to really focus in the moment and see, well, what is here now?
Yeah. But you don't always have to put words to it.
Also true.
It can be just look inside and what does it feel like without words to even label it or give it a name? What's here? Wordlessly.
Wordless is a perfectly valid answer in my office. When I say, what have you got? And they go, I got no words. I'm like, excellent. That's what you got right now. That's an answer. That counts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We live in a sea of multidimensionalist everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes words can't point to that, but something in our being can.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, that's a good place to call it a day. But for our listeners and for each of us here, keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Thank you for listening to Awareness Explorers. To learn more, you can check out our website at awarenessexplorers.com. Please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. We'd love it if you would post a review. And please share our link on Facebook and with family and friends, because knowing yourself as awareness is the greatest gift you can give yourself or someone you love.
wow, this being in the moment thing really works. It just really, this not sitting and wallowing in your story thing is really oddly great.